Do you want to create good closer copy frameworks and you don't know where to start? Well, today I'm going to take you from level 1, the beginner level, all the way to level 13, which will be the advanced pro level, to show you how to use frameworks to do quite complex and very fruitful things in all your copywriting efforts. So let's get going and jump in. So level 1. This is the basic mode for frameworks. So with this example I want to show you, this is an example I created from a need I had to be able to respond to people's Facebook posts without taking too much time. So in this case, this is the response someone put to a post of mine, and then I'm responding to that post using this. So all I've just done is gone to my Facebook group page, copied the comments to my post, and then copied my own replies to the posts. So the reason why I have these labels here, these are things that I want to repeat through my examples to help the AI know that once it sees something like this, it's going to come across something like this. And that allows the AI to be a little bit more consistent in the answers it's giving you. And the way Nico coded the AI, each example must end with 3 hashed symbols. And this is the basic mode. You could use it to do anything. You could create a small paragraph. So it could be an introduction to a blog, or it could be a conclusion to your blog. All you just have to do is go find an example of an introduction that you like and place in this. And you've got your example, and then you just need 3 examples of that, and that's all you do for the basic step. So moving on to level 2. Level 2 is what I call the answer mode. The idea with the answer mode is if I have any question whatsoever and the AI will give me an answer, and in most of the cases, the answer is factual and very good. And so to get the AI into this answer mode, you've got to have the question you want to ask, and you've got to have an answer. And this is a crucial point. The answer and the question must be around factual things. If they are not factual, the AI has a tendency to make stuff up more. So I'm going to show you an example of a framework that you can create to get the AI to answer anything. Here's an example of a framework that would be good for an answer mode. Again, we've got our labels here. So the label here is question. The question is, what is a marriage? And the answer is, a marriage is a diverse relationship between 2 people that is bound by law, tradition, or contract. And for me, all I just did with this one is ask Google the questions, and Google came up with the answer, and I chose answers that I really like, that felt in-depth and short, and used them as examples. So why is the answer mode different from the basic mode? I find that they tend to give very different results. And this is one of the things you find the more you get into working with the AI and creating frameworks. The frameworks tend to have a personality of their own. And sometimes I've created 2 frameworks where it feels like I'm doing the same thing, but the results I'm getting from those 2 frameworks are consistently different. Still very good, but both very unique and interesting. So for example, let's say you decided to focus all your answer mode questions on a specific author, the way that author tends to answer questions, you'll find that most of the answers that the AI starts giving you seem quite similar to how that author would talk. So again, we follow the same format: question, answer, question, answer. And something I forgot to mention the last time is that you've got to give the AI a final option where you've got the input. So you have this question hash input. So that question that I have here, this is what is on the top there. And this place where I have input, that's where this will go. So usually then you also provide an example in the framework where you put the input in front like this. It has to be exactly like this, otherwise it just won't work. And then put an example question just so that you can know for yourself in future, what does the example look like? Because I've also found that if the things you input into the field here differs heavily from the example, you can get fishy answers. The answers are not as accurate because you've broken the pattern. So your questions or things that you put in the input must be similar to what was in that label from before. I hope that makes sense. Level 3, this is the discussion mode within one framework. So the discussion mode is a way of engaging with the AI, almost like you're discussing with the AI, you're having a conversation with the AI, rather than using your frameworks as something that will just give you all the outcome at a go, but you're using your frameworks to explore and reveal more ideas around the topic you are trying to discuss. The discussion mode can work for any framework you've created. And the idea is you follow a process to enable the AI to give you the next item, the next idea by starting off. So for example, let's just use this to ask me a question framework, and let's ask about what do mics do. So if I put a right for me, the AI could give me a very good answer, but sometimes the AI may not give you the best answers. So for example, they record sounds. Wow, yep, yeah, that answers it. But let's say you just want something a little bit more juicy. We could say, okay, yes, they do record sounds, but we want to continue that conversation. We want it to say more. Let's start with mics are instruments that are. Let it say more. Used to capture a person's voice or music. I like that. They are usually placed on stage. Yeah. I want to say more. Let me just say good examples of mics include. Okay. I was expecting to get some brand names. I didn't get the brand names here, but this is still good. Guitar mic, the vocal mic, and stage mic. Let me see if it can actually give me some brand names. Some good brands of professional mics are, and I get the brands. This could be you writing up a review for a mic and you're just using the frameworks to discuss the question. Now, why is this important? Many people within the group, in the Facebook group on CLosersCopy, keep complaining that they can't get what they really want from the AI. It's not giving them the content because they're expecting all the time for the AI to produce every single thing for them. I find that you work a lot faster, 10 times, even maybe 50 or 100 times faster if you engage the AI in a discussion like this. So you add some, AI adds some, you add more, the AI adds more. You can just keep going like this and produce a very professional paragraph on what mics do. I hope you get the point. So this is the discussion mode. You can take any framework and follow this pattern. Now that brings us to level 4, which is the combo mode. So the combo mode is quite similar to level 3, which is the discussion mode. But in this case, we are discussing using multiple frameworks. And so one of the things I've recognized whilst I've been using these frameworks is that some frameworks seem to be able to work better together. There's something about the AI that if you get an idea from the AI seems to be able to follow up more smoothly with that idea. So for example, I might pick up a phrase from one specific framework, from one of the responses that the AI has given me, and then I use that response in another framework. And I find that when I do that, the AI is more likely to stay consistent. And why is that important? Sometimes you may want to try to start from your own idea. So you place your own idea in the framework as you're trying to discuss, and the AI is just not quite understanding what you mean exactly. And so starts to give you different answers that are not so relevant. But if you can pick up an answer from the AI that is relevant to what you want, the AI has already written that phrase in a way that it understands already. So if it makes sense to you and it makes sense to the AI is more likely to then produce things that are more relevant to that phrase that you felt was relevant. So let's use an example just to explain what I mean. Take an example from the SEO friendly framework. So the idea here is I want to write a blog on how to find wives in Africa, how to find a wife in, let's go more specific, in Nigeria. And in this case, the subtopic would be choosing the ethnic group So I've got a title and I've got a subtopic of choosing the ethnic group of the wife in Nigeria. So we just want to brainstorm to start off with. This idea is actually sounding quite interesting. So let's say I've just started off with this. We've got a subtopic. So this is the title of the article, this is the subtopic, and this is the initial blurb, right? Because we started the conversation, we started the discussion using one framework. We can now take this and say, okay, maybe I want to discuss a little bit about why choosing the ethnic group is important. So I could go into here and say, why is it important to choose the right ethnic group to marry? So I can actually use what I started with here to start off the conversation and let the AI use that idea, which came from the AI anyway, to continue the conversation. And I could now say the reason it is important to choose, and let the AI continue from there. And one of the things you'll find with the combo modes enables you to discuss very complex topics and go into more detail. Very useful for writing out well thought out answers that won't seem like it was an AI that gave you the answer at all. So the reason it is important to choose the right ethnic group is because there are different types of women from that particular group. And you need to choose a woman who's compatible with your personality and values and beliefs. You should avoid choosing a woman who's too aggressive, because if she is too aggressive, it might be hard for you to be intimate with her. The same goes with a woman who's too passive. And that's interesting because there'll be certain cultures in Nigeria, certain ethnic groups in Nigeria, for those who are wondering, I'm from Nigeria, that their wives are actually quite aggressive, and there'll be certain ethnic minorities in Nigeria that their wives are very passive too. Going to an ethnic group that's too aggressive, not that any of the ethnic groups would want to acknowledge that they are aggressive at all, but you get my drift. So this enables me to now continue the conversation, and what you notice is that it's actually continuing the conversation in a very interesting and exciting way. It can be hard to actually get the AI to produce this kind of outcome for you. But because you're cherry picking from different frameworks, you have the ability to write something that's quite unique, extremely unique. It's impossible for it to not be unique because of how you're picking it out from different frameworks. It's unique and interesting, right? And this is the combo mode for frameworks. So using multiple frameworks to create a discussion with the AI. Cool. Right, moving on to the next one, the Lego mode. And I love the Lego mode. And the Lego mode is a way to connect the frameworks themselves. So whilst the combo mode allows you to use the frameworks by going into different frameworks and discussing, the Lego mode allows you to take simple frameworks that are already working very well, combine them together to produce a longer framework. So the framework gives you longer content. Now, why would you want to do that? And from the very beginning, I've often said that I like to see frameworks like Lego. You know how Lego works? Lego, you can take Lego and build anything. Once you have that mindset with the frameworks, you can build anything with the frameworks. You can allow it to morph into anything. So the keys towards using the Lego mode is you want to find frameworks that work well, but are very simple. They're simple, and what I mean by simple is that they are small in size. You don't want something that is 3,000 characters, perhaps something that's maybe around 400 characters, maximum 800 characters, which means that when you find a number of frameworks that can work together as a whole, you can actually stick them all into the framework as one example. So let's say we like this Ask Me Any Question framework. So what I'll do is I'll find an example to take from the first framework that I want to follow. Perhaps maybe I'm trying to write an article on the transition of marriages across the years. Headline is How Marriage Has Changed Across the Years. Now notice what I'm doing here. I am actually using the framework itself and trying to create an answer based on that framework in the format of that framework, which I can then stack on this as in a Lego mode. In this case, this will be the first and this then be the second. We could copy this, but don't forget the labels. So let's pick out the labels. Those are labels. The labels are headline and intro. So I could put a headline here. And see what I'm doing is I've got 3 frameworks that's short, but they work very well. And I'm now using the content from those frameworks to create a larger framework. So I'm just kind of stacking them on top of each other like a Lego. Another point to remember here is that as you're compiling this Lego example, they've got to read well together. Once you've completed your example, read through to see whether it feels like there's a follow through. So this one says a marriage is a diverse relationship, a social and legal union to establish joint ownership of property, seek emotional fulfillment, or have children. And then goes to how marriages have changed across the years. That sounds like it flows. So really what I've done here is I've combined 3 different frameworks into one framework example. So now we've got our example. All we just got to do is we could actually create an example using this example that we've got first. And this is something that I do regularly. If I can't find examples that are, because it's a very unique pattern I've created here, I just pop this into a framework itself and continue the conversations from there. So this is the what is intro. Pop that in there. So the AI has tried to do something. Intro, subhead, body 1, body 2, body 2. Oh, right. So this actually, we've got a good example here already with all the parts in there. Already with the first example, it was doing a good job. So we got the second example, just add the second example to it and make it a much more stronger framework. So now we've got our what is intro, which starts off with what is conversation anytime you want. Okay, so that's how we put the Lego mode together. Moving on, the brainstorm mode. So the idea here with the brainstorm mode is sometimes you want to write an article, but you have no clue where to go, where to start. CLosersCopy A.I can be a lifesaver here, being able to help you determine what to start even writing about. If you have a framework that gives good quality outlines, that could be used as a brainstorming tool. So my topic ideas framework, for example, this is a brainstorm tool. I don't really know what I want to talk about, but I know I want to talk about something related to boosting courage. So that kind of allows me to get through a lot of different ideas, things that I may not even think of easily by myself. So how to stop thinking about failure, that's a good thing. How to stop fearing disappointment, how to overcome the fear of doing something new, how to feel more confident, how to overcome the fear of public speaking. These types of tools enable you to be able to just get through the brainstorming process a lot faster than trying to do it just from your head. Okay, show you quickly an example of how the framework looks like. And it's quite simple. You have the request. Again, this is just a label. Whenever I'm trying to get the best out of this framework, I have to format my question close to this. It gives them the best outcome. Okay. And all you just do is find something, a question, and here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ideas for each one. You could do more, but I felt 6 was enough. And all this just then does is allows that framework to just give me ideas based on what I've asked. Moving on to the next mode, which is the SEO mode. The SEO mode. This was one that literally had me pulling my hair out to figure out what's the best way to make sure that I can write an article that has enough keywords to rank on page 1 of Google. There's just so much to account for that it just takes the joy out of writing for me. Before, what I will do would be find the main keyword, look for the 10 first articles in Google and try and pick out all the keywords to make up my outline for my article. If I'm trying to make sure that my articles follow using keywords, everything just gets stifled. That's the hardest way to go about doing it. The best way to do it is to let the AI help you with this process. And it's actually quite simple. All you just have to do is find articles that you know are well written with SEO in mind, and then use those articles to fill in your examples. And that's all. Now, it is possible that after you've done that, you still want to add some more keywords. All you just have to do is use discussion mode. Take the keyword you want to use and use discussion mode to pop the keywords in. So I already have a video on this SEO mode. So if you want to figure out how to use the SEO mode, I would really suggest you watch that video because it explains the whole process in full. So that's the SEO mode. Moving on to the condenser mode. So one of the things that the frameworks are very good for is when you've written an article and you want to just condense it and just make it smaller. And why would you want to do that? So quite often shorter paragraphs feel easier to read. And when something is easier to read, you have a better chance of keeping people's attention, enabling people to want to read on. And all you do with the condenser mode is find an example that you want to condense and first go through the process of condensing it yourself. You may use tools like WordTune to actually condense it and use that as your examples. The condenser and the expander mode all follow the same idea. So here's an example of one of my tools that condenses articles. And these are the example frameworks. So all I just had is took this paragraph, went to a tool like WordTune that allows you to shorten or expand, and created some shorter form of the paragraphs and just popped in enough examples. I had to use about 6 before the AI started to condense everything that I gave it. And this is how you just do it. Something just to mention is the quality of the sentences is important. So making sure it's grammatically correct, making sure it's exciting or interesting is also important, because how you word things with these examples, the AI is going to follow a very similar format. So you could do that for rewriting, for making things sound more casual, making things sound more formal, or making things sound more exciting too as well. So that is the condenser or expander mode. The coloring mode again is quite similar to the condenser and expander mode, except in this situation, in your examples, you're infusing emotional words. You're infusing adjectives, adverbs, action words, things to help people feel activated. So a good example of my coloring mode I used for my entizer frameworks. I don't think people have access to this one yet. I have not shared this yet in the community. So what these enticers do is they take a phrase and try and create more curiosity with that phrase, adding a fascination to headlines, for example. So we have a simple headline of how to develop healthy coping habits. Let's see how this might entice. So new headline, revealing how to develop healthy coping habits when life is going bad. Yep. How to develop healthy coping habits without wasting money on psychotherapy. Exclusive and unusual secrets. Discover how to develop healthy coping habits. So it just kind of makes it a bit more alive. And so the examples with that one, very similar process. Get your simple headline or original headline and find a way to snazzy up the headline. So moving on, the research mode. It's a very, very important one that I discovered, because you may not know it, but CLosersCopy A.I can actually help you do research. Very, very, very good research as well. And I guess the idea here is you want to sell something, you got to figure out who your market is, what's their interests, what's their needs, what's their wants, what's their fears, what's their dreams. You've got to figure all of those kind of things out, for example. And it turns out that the AI can actually help you suggest things that are actually quite close to what people want. And I have to say this, I've created a few sales pages using this process and they have sold. And that's very important, because when you create a sales page and your sales page cannot sell, what's the point of the sales page? But to have the AI do your research, you're not going around surveying people, looking for customers who will tell you the reasons why they bought from you. You're not doing that. You're just creating the research for your customers from scratch within minutes. And you can now take that content and plug it into your sales page and it sells. So how do we actually make it work? I'm just going to give you an example of the kind of things that could be in this framework. So for example, this is discovering their pains. And all I'm just doing is I already have an idea of what has worked for somebody. You may have, you may go to somebody else's sales page that's within your niche. Let's say you find somebody who you know is doing very, very well. Go to their sales page, look at the pain points that they've pulled out, and then put this into your own frameworks. So you're looking for the pain points, the desires, so the nightmares. So this one is a much more complex framework, as you can see. Problem bullets, nightmare bullets, solution bullets, dream bullets. And I'm putting that in there here. And then what that does is combine everything together. So it's done all the work for you. So you could pretty much just take this and plug it into the sales page without making any changes to it. So this is the research mode. So the tutorial mode. Now, one of the things I've also discovered about the AI is that the AI is actually quite good at teaching stuff. I didn't quite expect this. I didn't expect this at all. That I've actually learned more about my profession in the last year than I have done in the 2 years previously before coming in contact with CLosersCopy. That's a very interesting thing to say. I've been in the mental health field for over 22 odd years. So I have experience and I have a lot of knowledge in this field. But to be able to learn more from CLosersCopy's AI is very, very interesting. So many of you may have come across my 15-second ads, 15-second tutorial scripts. It's like a 1-minute short script, video script, wisdom tutorials. And the idea here again is you want to teach somebody something in a short space of time as possible. All you just have to do is use one of these short scripts. In my Facebook ads frameworks, I have a tutorial style framework here. So this tutorial, Boost Emotional Health, Learn How to Love Yourself, has a title and it has some bullets. Take a break from technology, spend time in nature, practice mindfulness, eat healthy, meditate. And you know what? I'm just going to actually take this and pop it just as a post in Facebook. And what I've just done is I've found some very short examples of tutorials that were quite similar to this and use those examples in the framework. I can't show you those examples because they actually belong to a product that I bought. So that is the tutorial mode. And then that brings us to level 13, which is a keeping in topic mode. And the reason that I created this process was that sometimes, especially when I wanted to write something that's quite long, it's very hard to keep the AI in topic, especially if I don't want to spend too much time in that discussion mode where I'm discussing with the AI. I want the AI to give me more content straight off the bat without wasting so much time with the minimum effort. But to do this, it meant that I had to create certain types of labels. And I'll bring an example. My explanation, C-Craft explanation frameworks are very good examples for this one. So I wanted to be able to give an explanation to a topic from beginning to end without having to engage with the AI too much. Sometimes I still have to engage with it, but most of the time I'm able to get a good content straight off the bat. But to do this, I had to create points. So for example, I put in these labels here. So agreeable points, another label section, second section, and then third section, and then lesson learned. I had to use these. It's important to use these and to make sure I keep to the exact same ones in order to keep the framework in topic. Sometimes to make sure it stays even more in topic, I may use similar phrases to start off the paragraphs of each section. So I may say today the grid has problems, and make sure that for each example at that same spot, I use today the something has something. Today the something has something. So that is level 13, and I'm taking us from level 1 all the way to level 13 of mastering the frameworks. And if you're able to just repeat and repeat this process, you too get to a point where you can create frameworks that are super effective for all your writing needs. So on that note, we've come to the end of today's video. If you really love this video, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel as well. So that's all for today. Speak again soon. Bye.